Hi friends, and welcome back to Gardening Suburbia. My name is Amanda, and today I am starting my hot pepper seeds and a few other varieties of things that I am dabbling in. So last season I really didn't grow anything that was super hot. I think the hottest pepper that I had a serrano, but they didn't produce too well. This year I'm wanting to do some really hot peppers, solely for the fact that I want to dehydrate them, make them into pepper powder, and then put them on any of the plants that the squirrels are just trying to kill. Squirrels are probably one of the largest pests in my garden, and I think one of you suggested using hot pepper flakes on the plants to keep them away, so I'm going to try it this year. So for those two, I might end up actually using some of these peppers in kind of like an experiment in some different foods. I like spicy food, but I don't like the kind of spicy that makes you sweat and, need water and milk or whatever to cool yourself off. But I got the Death Spiral pepper from Baker Creek, and then I also got a free Datil pepper as well. This was one of their free packet. But both of these are very spicy. Vicious Heat is the Datil. And this is among one of the hottest peppers. So it's very spicy. Probably will share these with my sister. We'll see. And then I also got some pimento peppers, which I think, was it last year or 2 years ago? I got some seeds from my sister that had no name on them, and little did I know that they were pimento peppers. I would call them the tomato pepper because I had no idea what they were until I did research and found out they were pimento peppers. They were probably one of the best tasting peppers that I've had. They're sweet, and honestly they're just so good added to spaghetti sauces and whatnot that I knew I had to plant some this year. Another one that I am super excited for are the Sugar Rush Peach. That's there's really only one project that I have in mind for this. Last season I made peach habanero jam, and it's so good, especially when you have some freshly baked bread. I like to make sourdough. I'll bake sourdough, cut it up, toast it, put some really delicious butter on it, and then that peach habanero jam, and it's so good. So this year I thought it would be really fun to experiment with adding the Sugar Rush peach peppers into that jam. Maybe I'll add it in addition to the habaneros. Maybe I'll swap it out. I don't know. We'll see what the flavor is like with these and that jam. But this is another one I'm super excited for. Then I'm also starting a few other random things that aren't peppers. So I've got yarrow. Yarrow has a ton of medicinal uses. Just when you do a quick Google search, it has a variety of things that people use it for, like menstruation problems, digestive issues, creating saliva, like a whole slew of things. But you can use the leaves, the stem, the flowers. Typically you would harvest that when they are in bloom, and it's just really pretty, so I'm excited about that one. This is one that, so I wouldn't really recommend growing things that you wouldn't typically know that you use in your kitchen, unless you're growing them for ornamental purposes. But I feel like there should be you should be allowed to experiment here and there with new things, and I like trying new foods, so I am going to try to grow some artichokes. I've had them on sandwiches before, and I know that I like that, but I've never grown them. They seem a little temperamental. They do have a long grow period, so it takes about 150 to 180 days for these to actually grow to maturity. So I would recommend looking up what your grow season is. I believe mine is like 176 days. So that might just be on the edge, but these are frost tolerant. These are actually perennial in the US zone 7 through 10. I am in zone 6, so I think I'm a little past that. Even though these are not perennial in my zone, I am going to try to grow them and see if I like them. If I don't even like to eat them, they are pretty, so it'll make a nice pretty little thing in the garden to look at. One thing I am for sure growing are red onions, Cabernet onions. I need to figure out how to successfully grow those. I can get them to the point that they are onion sets, so basically where they have like a small bulb on them and the green growth on the top, but I've never successfully grown a large or medium size, baseball size of onion. I think my largest onion last year was like egg size. So we'll see if we can get a better onion harvest. I know that the garlic outside is looking fantastic. I already have 3 to 4 inches of my elephant garlic popping up through the straw, and there are some smaller little points from the hard neck and soft neck varieties. So we're gonna have some garlic this year. The last thing that I am starting today is celery. Last year I did kind of a similar method that I do with my tomatoes and my peppers, where I start them in a big bunch. Once they have about 2 to 3 true leaves on them, I go ahead and just tease them apart out of the soil, and then I'll repot them into their individual starter pots. I'll probably use these little 6 cells for the celery starts once they are large enough to pot them from the smaller sets that I have them in. Last year my celery, I got them to the point where they're about pencil thick for each stalk, but not quite like those big ones that you'd slap some peanut butter on and munch on. So another thing that I am practicing. Also, my dad informed me that the LEDs should not overload my outlet just because they don't draw a bunch of power. So thanks for that, Dad. I'd like to start potting my peppers first. I do have tags that I'm going to be using to make sure that I label all of my plants. I am just using some Miracle-Gro soil for seed start mix. I do not like the Jiffy seed starting mix simply because it really doesn't have a good soil structure. It's very light and it doesn't have a lot to it. So I'm going to use potting mix to start all of my seeds in. I'm not using anything that's super expensive. Honestly, just use whatever soil that you have on hand that's going to get you started planting your seeds. My first few years I did use that Jiffy seed starting mix that is very light. It doesn't have a whole bunch of nutrients, and those seeds typically do need to be up potted just so that they don't become super wimpy and you know, you're giving them more nutrients. I filled up a pitcher of water so that I can pre-moisten the soil before adding the seeds in, which is important. Adding water in after you've added your seeds can make your seeds sink to the bottom of the pot, which makes it so that they have a harder time finding the light. Most seeds have a certain amount of energy in them, and so they have just enough energy to get the sprout to get to the surface of the soil to then find the sunlight, and if they sink further than that, then they'll never, you know, emerge from the soil. So I'm gonna pre-moisten the soil, and we're gonna start by making some labels for our plants. For the celery and my onions, I'm going to be using these old mushroom containers. So these are just basically what the store packed mushrooms in, and I thought they were perfect containers for starting a large pack of seedlings such as these. Onions have very strong, resilient roots, and so you can easily densely pack them in soil, and then once they become large enough seedlings, you can go ahead and actually just tease them apart, and they are perfectly fine. So I typically do my onions in larger dishes such as this, and then once it's actually time to plant them out, I'll remove them and tease them apart and set them to the right distance from each other. I'm going to do the same for my celeries. These are basically the same type of celery, Utah celery. One's organic and one is not. But I don't really care either way. So I'm just going to pack both of these in here. I'm probably only going to do one start of the artichoke. I might do 2 to 4 seeds per this 2.5-inch cell, simply because I don't really need a ton of plants, especially since I'm not really quite sure what I'm going to be using this for, and it's really just an experiment, so I don't want it to be taking up too much space in my garden. For all the peppers, I'm going to be using individual cells and kind of densely planting them. I'll probably end up doing 8 seeds or so, 8 to 10 seeds of the sugar rush peach and the pimento, and then just a few of these really hot peppers. One of the most important parts of starting seeds is making sure that you are labeling your seeds, mostly because a lot of them can look very similar, especially if you're planting different varieties of tomatoes or different varieties of peppers. You don't want to mix up your hot peppers with your sweet peppers, especially since you don't really know what kind of peppers you're going to get until they're producing those peppers. And some of those can cross-pollinate, and if your seed's saving, then you're going to be getting some weird inconsistencies with the mother plant. So I'm going to go and I got a really big pack of these tags off of Amazon. I'll go ahead and link it down below. They work fairly well. I do not have the sun UV light protected marker. I just use a Sharpie, and it works well enough. These tags do tend to get sun damage after sitting outside for quite a while. And I do still reuse my tags even after I use them once, just because, I mean, it's all the same. So we're gonna start labeling these. I'm going to put the date today that we sowed these. Today is February 11th. So we got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, so on the back of these tags I'll put the variety. So we've got Sugar Rush Peach, Death Spiral, Tatao, we've got Pimento, Artichokes, we've got our Parker's Variety Yarrow, some Utah celery, and last but not least we have some of our Cabernet onion bulbs. I think I'm gonna need one more for another pimento. Now that the tags are all made up, we're going to fill all of these with soil. Make sure it's pre-moistened. We're just gonna add some water to those and then put our seeds in the soil. So I'm gonna fill all of these up pretty much to the top with soil. And if I see any big chunks, I'll go ahead and remove those. I would totally recommend doing this in like a basement or a garage or somewhere that doesn't have carpet. This is the only space in my house that I can really dedicate to seed starting without it being in a place where my dog and my cat can like really get into it. I can close it off if I need to, which can't be said about my dining room, which is the other place that I would typically do this. But this is where I am. Hopefully eventually someday in my life I will have a greenhouse that is dedicated to my plants that I don't have to worry about my animals getting into. If you are reusing any of your old pots or dishes or whatever it is that you choose to start your plants in, I would recommend cleaning them before using them, only because you do not want to spread any diseases or anything like that to your seedlings. And just making sure that your pots are nice and clean for a new season of growth. I mean, I think it's better to do than not to. Gives your plants a better odds of actually being successful. Since it's my first season using these particular bootstrap farmer trays, I'm not too worried about actually cleaning them, just because they haven't been used with soil and whatnot. With all of my pots, I'm going to go ahead and give them a good dose of water, just because I want this water or soil to be pre-moistened. But since I'm not starting too many seeds at this very moment, I'm not too worried about this being the process that I'm using. And these two containers, I did have holes on the very bottom so that the water can drain out of them. So my next step, I'm just going to go ahead and add my tags to onions, celery, my yarrow, artichokes, then all of my green containers will be my peppers. For the Utah celery, these guys are only supposed to be about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch deep. These seeds are super, super tiny, as you can see. So really all I'm going to be doing is putting these on the surface and kind of scruffling them around. I'm going to start with this variety just because I have fewer of them and they are an older pack. Although seeds really do not, the package date on them does not refer to like their sell date when they go bad. Seeds really just lose, their germination percentage goes down with each year, but it really doesn't mean that they don't grow anymore after the sell by date. I don't know if you guys can see those little tiny brown bits. Those are the celery seeds. So I'm just gonna move the soil around a little bit. I'm not going to bury them or poke holes for them to go in, just because that in itself would be way too deep. So just kind of scruffling the soil surface with the seeds on it is going to be enough. So same thing goes for the Cabernet onions. I'm just going to be placing the seeds on the top of the surface of the soil, and then just kind of scruffling them into it. Alright, so that is all of the onions. And this is a perfect time to show you the inside of the seed packet. So one of my favorite things about the Botanical Interest Seed Company is that their seed packets are filled with information. So if you go ahead and actually cut open their seed packet once you've used your seeds, you can actually see more information. So here is the outside of the packet, and then on the very inside there is jam-packed with more info about that certain variety. So they've got everything from the genus and the species of the seed, where it's native to, its hardiness, variety information, general onion information, some optional growing conditions, harvesting, and they even go as far to give in-kitchen advice, so how to store it, and they even give a recipe, which is so awesome. So on this particular seed packet, they have a recipe for red onion jam, which surprisingly sounds kind of interesting and good. Ooh, and grilled cheese sandwiches. I love me a fancy grilled cheese sandwich. Okay, but one really, I give major props to Botanical Interest for giving the most detailed instructions and filling every space on the seed packet. With all of the seeds on the soil surface, I'm just going to go ahead and scruff it up a bit. I accidentally made this soil just a little too damp, but it will drain out. The yarrow is one of those varieties that you need to top sow. So you place the seeds on the top of the soil surface, you do not push them in, just because they do need light to germinate, and there's really no way around that. So you really need to be careful and really make sure that you're reading the backs of your seed packets to make sure you're getting the most information and giving yourself the best chances of success. So we've got a good surface sow on our yarrow. A good rule of thumb when planting seeds, if you do not have information to know how deep to sow, is you want to sow them twice as thick as they are wide. So this seed is from our artichoke, and it's supposed to be sown 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch deep. I'm going to do 4 of these guys in my artichoke seed start. I personally like to use the end of a pencil or whatever you have that is pretty thin and just kind of poke holes to where I want my seeds to go. So hopefully you guys can see those holes in the corners. So I've got one there, and here. So I'm just gonna pop one seed per hole and then cover with soil. Next we are going to do our super spicy peppers. These guys I'm not going to plant a ton of, and since I'm only doing a few, I'm just going to do 4 indentations and get out 4 seeds. Pop seeds in. And then just gently cover those guys up. These hot peppers will need a good heat mat, and they will need that light on. I do have humidity domes that I will be placing over these as well. I'll keep the humidity domes on while they are germinating, and once everything germinates, I'll go ahead and take those humidity domes off because they're really just to help your seedlings germinate. Up next we have our death spiral. And again, I'm just going to do about 4 seeds. So I'm just going to make a slight indentation in each of the corners. And I may plant a few extra of these guys just so I can gift them to my cousin who is a fan of spicy peppers. So up next we have our Sugar Rush Peach, which I'm going to be doing a bit more starts of these just because I have some big plans for these seeds in particular. We'll go ahead and do the same indentations. They like about 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch in depth. And then we'll just pop those bad boys in there. Gently cover those. I'm going to take this mulch piece out. Okay. Alright, and last but not least we have pimento peppers. Same old, 1/4 inch thickness. I'm going to do 4 holes in these as well on each of the corners. The Ashe County pimento. So excited for these. Cover those bad boys up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Seed starting is probably a good portion of my favorite time of gardening season. I love getting to plant things from seed and getting to watch them sprout up and have little birthdays when they pop through the soil. Most of these guys I will keep on a heat mat here, and I'll put one of these humidity domes over the top during the germination process. I will keep my light on pretty much all day. I do have a window in the back that does let in a pretty good portion of light, but I really want to give my seedlings the best chance of being strong and healthy. Once these guys do sprout, I will put a oscillating fan on them. That just kind of blows them around and gets them used to wind, or simulating wind from outside. What variety of pepper are you guys most excited for planting this season? I'd love to know. Let me know down below. If you guys are interested in any of my other videos, I'll go ahead and pop one up here. But until then, I will see you guys next time. Bye.